Yo, what's up guys? It's Talon. If you don't know who I am, I've been rank 1 in Wild Rift all solo queue. I've been 5-role Sovereign, 5 different accounts in one single season all solo queue as well. And today I'm going to be talking about side lane macro and Baron lane, basically when to split push, when to team fight, understanding the differences and the nuance that comes with that. I want to make it very clear that there's a lot of information in this video and I don't want you or expect you to take all of the information and immediately implement it in your games. What I think is a lot more useful is learning about 1 or 2 key concepts I mentioned in the video after maybe 5-10 minutes of watching, trying to implement those things to your game, and then going from there. You know, once you've gotten better at those things after a couple days, then you can go on to other parts. But just watching the entire video without taking notes or all at once is probably not going to be the most useful way to learn from this. So I want to make that clear. But again, we're going to go over many examples, playing from ahead, playing from behind, playing when you're ahead and your team's behind, and vice versa as well. All those different things. Additionally, there's a Google Doc, link in the description to that Google Doc, which gives you all of the key concepts you need to understand to improve at Wild Rift and videos associated with them, or I will create videos for them in the future if I haven't already. And lastly, link in the description gives information on my coaching if you're interested in paying $25 an hour for an hour of me coaching you. Anyways, let's get right into the video. I hope you guys enjoy it. All right, so again, like I said, there's going to be kind of 5 main scenarios, and those scenarios are going to be that you're ahead, but your team is behind, you're behind, but your team is ahead, you're all ahead, you're all behind, and then obviously you guys could be kind of even as well. So obviously there's more things that could be happening, but these are kind of the general things that you want to take into account. And then alongside that, you want to take into account your champion's goals. So going into this specific situation, for example, I'm Camille. I'm a split pushing champion who really wants to farm up on side lanes and have a lot of pressure on side lanes, create 1v1s, create 1v2s. Meanwhile, Ornn is a very much team fighting top laner. So if you look at it just in this general sense, I'm a champ who wants to split push, he's a champ who wants to team fight. Then if we go into it a bit further here, I'm losing lane right now. I'm behind in gold, even though I'm 2-2-2. I am behind gold to this Ornn by a decent amount, and my team is ahead. So I'm basically behind a bit, my team is ahead. And these types of scenarios, when your team is ahead, but you're behind, and you're a champion who wants to stick on side lane, you're going to generally side lane quite a bit. So in this scenario, for example, Ornn has prio, he pushed the wave, and he uses the fact that he pushed the wave to rotate, which is a great thing for a tank to do. That's what they want to do. But as the Camille, you don't want to just go and late match the enemy on this type of fight, especially when there's no objective up. If there is an objective up and you think that you have to be in that fight to win the fight for your team, and you think if you go there you will win, then you can go. But because there's no objective up, my champion wants to split push, I'm behind, so I'm not as useful as Ornn in fights, and Ornn had prio, so he gets to rotate first. For all of those reasons, all I do here is I just sit on the side lane and I decide that I'm going to get the turret, and whatever happens in the fight happens. Notice how I even go behind the turret just to clear quicker, because I know all I want is to just get this turret as quick as possible. So we basically just do exactly that. We end up getting the turret, and then eventually our side lane, pressure again, because that's what my champion does well, turns into a decent enough outcome, even though I end up missing, some of my spells, basically because we just have that pressure on side lane. Not only are we able to get a turret, but in the long run, we're actually able to force a decent enough fight as well and get some kills over to our teammates. So again, basically to reiterate here, because my champion wants to split push, and because the Ornn had prio, which meant he gets to rotate first, I want to end up staying on the side lane. And you can see out here, I was behind the Ornn before, and then after this play, we get a kill out of it, we get an assist out of it, we get a turret, and he died. All of those things lead to me end up having, a 700 gold lead when I was probably down a couple hundred gold before that. Okay, so one of the hard things about playing team or split pushing top laners is deciding when you actually do want to team fight. And we're kind of going to talk about this here. So if we look at the current situation I'm in right now, we're a minute away from an objective spawning, the dragon. And so initially, I want to split push on the opposite side of the objective that's spawning. Very typically, any champion, any Baron laner for the most part, is going to want to initially split push on the opposite side of the objective that's going to be fought over next, because they want to draw pressure away from that objective and make the enemy have to kind of be split up, and then use the fact that they're split up to either rotate or keep them on side lane depending on what they prefer. So that's the first thing to keep in mind here. The second to keep in mind is why I go so aggressive early on to go for this bottom lane turret. So again, we see that the Ornn early rotates. So the first thing is Ornn isn't here. So I want to use the fact that Ornn's not here to push really deep, because that means that Ornn is going to have to come back and respond eventually, which is going to be beneficial to me. And again, I'm a champion who wants to stick on side lane. The second thing is the objective is not spawning for about 35 seconds at this point, which means if I die, I will respawn right around the objective fight. So I'll still be able to be on the map. So I can be a bit riskier because the objective's not spawning for a while. So, or like it's spawning, but it's not spawning for a decent amount of time. So I have the ability to get some pressure and not be too worried about dying. So basically when you're deciding the side lane, initially you want to take into account the fact that you're going on the opposite side of the objective most of the time. You also want to keep in mind death timers, making sure that you're not dying at a time where then your death timer is going to be longer than the objective spawn. Additionally, because the Ornn rotated, I take advantage of the fact that he rotated to get the initial push so that he has to come back later. And then lastly, I had a lot of ways to escape. So I have my third ability, I have my flash, and my ultimate was about to come up. So if I didn't have all these things, I'd be more scared. So if I'm a Camille without flash, and I just use my third ability, and my ultimate, you know, is like 40 seconds until it comes up, I have to be more safe. So keeping in mind how many, you know, tools you have and who can also respond to you. So if we also look at it here, I knew Ornn and I think it was I knew Ornn and Echo here were not covering me. So then it would have to be 3 people on the enemy team, and I know that it's Lee Sin, Bard, and I forget the other one, I think it's in ADC, could have been there. And I know like Lee Sin, again, I can just dash away from him pretty easily. Bard, if I flash, if he ults me, like I'm gonna be fine. So knowing how the different enemy champions, you know, which champions can kill me and what they're gonna do to me on side lane as well is additionally important. So we use that pressure to get, you know, again, the push, but then you're gonna notice how we're going to notice a couple things. So the first thing is preparation for an objective. So as a Baron laner, you don't necessarily need to be the first one to the fight. You can find flank angles in team fights. You can find late pressure. That's fine. But you want to get the side lane pushed out before you go to the fights most of the time. So the first thing is make sure when you're preparing for objectives, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds in advance, you're pushing the wave so that you have some level of pressure because it draws the enemy Baron laner back to the side lane so you get to rotate first. And then the second thing is, why do I rotate to this fight and not just keep side laning? I'm Camille. I'm a champion who wants to split push. Well, the simple reason is this objective fight can lead to a Baron. Because whoever wins this fight will get Baron afterwards most of the time because Baron is obviously you know, spawning very soon. So this fight's not even about the dragon. It's about the fact that the death timers will be long enough if we win the fight hard enough that Baron will be taken afterwards. And so me maybe getting a tier 2 turret is not going to be as valuable as my team going, losing a 5v4 to Ornn, and then getting, you know, losing Baron. However, if my team was losing significantly, I wouldn't rotate to this fight. So the reason I wouldn't rotate to this fight if my team was losing is because we would lose the fight anyways, and then great, like we would obviously die in a 5v5. But because we're ahead, I know that we're very likely to win the fight, and so I end up using my push to rotate to the fight. Unfortunately, I go a bit too far so my team can't follow up here, and we don't quite kill Echo, and so the fight outcome isn't the best, but even then it's not bad because we kind of force the enemy back. We get a lot of cooldowns out. We give our team complete prio, so we get the objective, and then they have pressure, which ends up leading to them winning the fight. You're going to see in the long run, leading to nearly a Baron. My team did kind of, you know, throw this a bit, but doesn't really matter. We're more concerned with the side lane macro, which again, there's obviously a lot of things to take away from that, but kind of the main things I want you to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you're pushing the opposite side of the objective you want to go to next. You get that pushed out to draw the enemy, and then you use the fact that you draw the enemy to you to then rotate first if the fight looks positive, which again in this case it did because we were ahead as a team, and I was ahead as well at this point. Whereas if your team was very behind, or you knew going to the fight wasn't very useful, or you knew that you could keep the enemy on side lane and you know, win the fight there, then you would obviously do that instead. Okay, so now we find ourselves in another position where we're still behind as a team and I'm very ahead, and there's no objective currently spawning. And so we use this time to again get this side lane pressure. Again, we see 45 seconds till the objective spawns. And so we end up trying to stay on side lane, pressure the side lanes. What this ends up doing is draws the enemy to us, gives me more gold obviously, and then means that we can set up for the fight. Because basically someone's gonna have to respond here at some point, which means I get to reset, and then I get to buy my item that I got from the turret, and now I'm very, very strong. I'm 4 items already on this fight. So I'll then do the same thing we talked about previously, which is use mid-wave to end up getting pressure and drawing the enemy to me. rather than trying to immediately fight. Now, this is going to be a very bad fight. We're still going to lose very hard because we were behind. And so this kind of shows you guys, like, you know, even if you do the right things, sometimes your team is going to hard lose fights and you will lose the game off it. As you can see, they literally end here. But that's not the point, right? The point is we once again use the fact that we're stronger on side lane, but our team is super weak in team fights, and we know we don't win the team fights because Aurelia is not that strong team fighting, to get side lane pressure, use side lane pressure to draw someone, and then take the reset, cover mid wave, and use the pressure on mid wave to create potentially, you know, odd numbered fights by dragging someone to us and creating those little skirmishes within the fight. Again, it didn't work out in this situation, but that's basically the gist of this clip. Okay, so far we've kind of showed you clips of champions who want a side lane, like Aurelia and Camille. Now we're going to show you a clip of a champion who wants to fight a lot, which is Warwick. Warwick especially likes creating these little skirmishes for his Baron lane, you know, or in Baron lane for his teammates. And so what you can do in these types of situations is, and this is also a situation where my team is a bit behind. We're not super behind, but we're a bit behind. Basically, use the fact that you've pushed a wave to give yourself the ability to rotate somewhere else. So notice how here, first off, I pushed my top wave, I reset for my item, and then instead of going back to, and I also hit a really good power spike, I hit Trinity plus Gargoyle. So instead of going back to top side right away and just continuing to sit and do nothing against the Darius, who prefers side laning compared to me, I end up finding a way to break open the game a lot harder. So not only do I get my wave push, which gives me a brief time to go rotate, not only am I a champion who wants to fight, but we're also a team that's a bit behind, which means creating these numbers advantages is super significant, because having numbers advantages when you're behind or slightly behind is important, because if you're down in gold, but you have an entire extra person there, you can kind of find ways to come back there. And then lastly, bottom lane turret is up, which means we have a good prize for this. Getting the bottom lane turret is obviously a very, very good prize if this does work out. Whereas if I did this but there was no bottom lane turret, there's just less reward, you know, potential from this play working out. So basically, again, we use the fact that we have that push to get a little bit of the early rotation, put ourselves in a position to potentially, you know, find a pick for our teammates. And you'll obviously see in a second here, it'll lead to me basically finding something. And if it didn't work out, all I have to do is recall, and then I can go back to top side. Luckily, Veigar does cover, which is kind of nice too. But here you can see we kind of need to find something to make the game go a bit better. And so we find that little, you know, double kill for our team by getting that rotation after pushing out our wave. Okay, so now we see ourselves in a situation where, yes, I'm a champion who wants to team fight, but we're down 2k gold, dragon spawning in 36 seconds, and each team has a dragon. So what I really need you guys to understand is that dragons only have one use, and that is getting soul. Dragons do not give significant buffs on their own. One dragon doesn't matter. The only value from dragons is the potential of getting soul. So if each team has one dragon, nobody can get soul. Therefore, the only reason to fight a dragon is if you think that you have an above 50% chance of winning that fight. Therefore, you need to go there because you're probably going to win, and it's probably going to have a positive expected outcome for you. In this case, we expect to lose. My jungler is dead until, you know, basically 10 seconds before the dragon spawns. You're going to see as well my Samira is going to be resetting pretty late for the dragon, and our top lane and side lanes weren't pushed out. So instead of going and fighting a random objective that has no value and no use, what you can do instead is just use that time to get a bit of side lane pressure and get the turret here. So we take a free turret, we get additional gold to ourselves, and if our teammates die as well, it doesn't matter that much because there's no Baron up. So the enemy wouldn't necessarily be able to get a whole lot out of that fight as well. So if that was a different fight where the Baron was up and the dragon was up, well, then we would just try to sneak Baron with our team if they listen, rather than going dragon as well. So basically this clip, the point is to understand dragons are useless unless you're ahead and you want to use them as an excuse to fight, or it's over, you know, a soul. Okay, so if we look at this game holistically, I'm slightly behind against enemy top laner, but pretty much even gold. I'm a very, very side laning focused champion, and my teammates are winning. So typically what you're going to want to do in that is get a lot of side lane pressure away from the objective and just constantly split push. But you're going to see here I go to mid initially, and I want to talk about why. So the first thing is I'm resetting because I have my item. That's why I'm resetting. If I had my item bought already, I would continue to go top side. But I need to get my item, so I reset. And then you're going to find yourself sometimes in a situation as a Baron laner where you don't have the lane pushed far enough to get enough pressure, and it already looks like a fight's going to break out. And so in this type of situation, sometimes you're going to feel the need to just go to the fight. So basically going topside doesn't give me a whole lot of value. I don't have wave pushed enough to really get much pressure. Like the fight's already pretty much going to be over. by the time I get to topside, which means either my team loses it and I get matched, or my team wins it and I would have been able to get turrets anyways. So in this situation where you're a champion who wants to side lane, but you have to reset and the fight already looks like it's going to be, kind of happening, basically just go and push mid wave and then evaluate from there. So notice out here, I'm like, okay, a fight's kind of happening, but I go there, I'm not going to be the most useful. I'm not a very strong Jax right now, and I'm not a very good team fighter. So instead, I just try to basically take someone out of the fight with me. And here, that's all I do. Like, I just take Wukong out of the fight with me. Wukong is a stronger team fighter than me. He has better CC, and he's slightly ahead of me right now. So all I do, and I actually beat him in 1v1s as well, like just as a champion. So basically all I do here is I just sit on him and I just fight him. Even if I died, it wouldn't really matter. All that matters is that he's not part of the fight. Now, the reason we win is because my teammates did well here. Obviously, I'm not taking credit for my teammate getting a quadra kill. That's on him. That's a good job by him. But the point is, I knew he's ahead, I knew he's strong, and my team is winning fights already. If I can just create an even numbered fight, that's enough. If I can just make Wukong stay on me as my team gets to fight that 4v4, that's enough. Because I had to reset for my item and I didn't have the side lane push far enough, so I want to find some other type of value some way, which is literally just distracting someone so they don't mess with my teammates. Okay, so a lot of the earlier clips have kind of been from behind, whether it's I'm behind, my team's ahead, or we're all a little bit behind. Now we're going to be showing some clips where we're a bit more ahead as an individual and often as a team as well. So in this situation, I'm super strong right now in side lane. Mundo is like 0-4, we've kind of been destroying him, and my team is doing well additionally. So in this type of situation, basically what you want is you want even numbers. When your team is winning and you're winning, you want even numbers. Why do you want even numbers? Well, let's think about it this way. Say that just hypothetically all 5 people from support to top lane all have a gold lead. Well, then if you have all of the enemy, 4 people who aren't the Baron laners fighting, and you have the Baron laners fighting, well, then you have a gold lead literally across the entire map. But if, let's say, I'm in a 1v2 where their jungler and their top laner fight me, and then my dual lane, or my other 3 people are fighting, or my other 4 people are fighting a 4v3. In that case, the 4v3, they have the gold advantage still, obviously, but now I'm down in gold. Like, say, hypothetically, I have 10k gold, but the enemy jungle on top of 8k gold, now it's 16k gold to 10k gold, and they have more abilities, obviously, because there's 2 people. So the point is, if we're just completely even numbers, we're going to win most likely because we have we have gold advantage everywhere. But if we end up letting them create a numbers advantage somewhere and then have numbers disadvantage elsewhere, then they have a strength somewhere. And so we want to avoid them having a strength somewhere. And so basically the point is I want to keep this Mundo in trades with me. Like, obviously I want to keep trading him with him because I just win the trades. Obviously here you find a brief rotation from my mid laner. It's fine sometimes for a teammate to briefly rotate if they can find a quick pick. Like, of course that's okay. But the point of this clip is, 1, what I just explained about the numbers advantages, and then 2, the fact that you want to really keep the enemy side laner on the side lane with you when you're winning the side lane fights really hard. So like I win against Mundo super hard in side lane fights, and so I basically want to just keep him there over and over and keep fighting him. That's essentially the gist of it here, is we want to make sure that we keep our champion on the side lane fighting someone that we're stronger than in these types of situations when we're winning and our teammates are also winning. Okay, so now we have another situation where we're both winning. I'm winning the Baron lane, my team's winning on the rest of the side of the map. Here we have Lamont and Gume on our team, so usually everyone's going to be winning when they're on your team. And in this situation, we can't actually get the next turret, but we do have pressure in lane. So you're going to see here, like, Olaf is the Baron laner in this case. He is just stopping me from getting the turret. There's no way I can really get the turret here. He's just going to sit under turret and farm. So what you want to do in these situations is you want to first get push. So you want to make sure you have the lane pushing. Here I go pretty deep, to make sure I can get it because I just know I'm relatively safe. I have my flash and my Gale Force as well. But then you want to use the fact that you've pushed the wave to rotate and be with your team for a little bit, because I can't really do anything until he starts pushing again. So instead of trying to just go for that turret and brute force it, we use the fact that we have prio to then rotate and find these kind of picks onto people like you saw here. Okay, so this clip I want to talk about Baron usage in side lanes. So typically when you get a Baron, your real goal is to get lanes pushed, not to go for a fight right after. I see it very commonly that people are winning a game, they get the Baron, and then they use the fact that they got the Baron to just go and take a 5v5 team fight, and then sure, they're going to win the team fight a lot of times, but they're wasting their Baron to the point that they maybe only get one turret out of that Baron. And so even though a fight occurred, no one really cares. Like, you slightly won the fight and you got nothing out of your Baron. So typically with Baron, you want to get the side lanes pushed first, and then you do one of two things with the side lanes being pushed. So the first thing you're going to do is take turrets, obviously. The other thing you can do is what you saw in the last clip, which is use the side lane push to then create a numbers advantage elsewhere, which then allows you to get a kill and use that kill to get turrets after. Those are kind of the two things you want to do with your Baron. And so here, obviously, the enemy get quite distracted. They go, pretty deep for fights. And so basically all you're going to see here is just the fact that I'm aware of pushing with my Baron, and you can see these minions aren't even Baroned up yet, but the next ones will be. But this allows me to just constantly have this side lane pressure, which means then my team has a pretty easy ability to either win the fight or just distract the enemy long enough for me to get something done. So even though, my teammates are in like a kind of weird, messy fight there, it doesn't matter if one or two of them die. It really doesn't matter the outcome of the fight, because at the end of the day, we're using the Baron lane minions to just get a million turrets out of this situation. And then notice how I use the Baron lane minion, the top side being pushed to go into the mid lane. So even you can kind of see the same concept. So in other situations, say I was on their inhib, but then top laner responded and I wasn't able to get their inhib, I'd use that push to go into mid. In this case, I use the fact that I already take the inhib to then rotate straight into the mid lane, and you can see we get 5 turrets out of a Baron. This is first Baron too, so it's like the weak Baron. And because, again, we're aware of the fact that we go onto the side initially, we get the sides pushed out, and then from the side lanes being pushed out, we can then find the rotations afterwards, or we can stay on the side lane depending on, the scenario that kind of shows itself. That's basically why we were able to get so many turrets out of this scenario. Okay, so I don't have quite as many clips about TP usage as I probably could here, but I do want to talk a little bit about TP before we sort of really get into this clip. So the first thing about TP is you can use the fact that you have TP advantage, whether the enemy didn't take TP or they just don't have it right now. You can use the TP advantage to go on side lane first, and then use the fact that you're on side lane with TP to basically create a numbers advantage on a fight after you push a wave, because the enemy are stuck on the side lane without TP. That's a pretty straightforward thing. I think most people understand that. An additional way to use TP is going to be what you'll see here, so we'll explain it kind of as we go throughout this clip. So basically, I'm not worried about that top lane as much because I have TP to respond to top lane. Additionally, in this game, I'm Heartsteel Renekton. So I win Heartsteel because of my matchup. I'm into a Garen. I can't really kill a Garen, so I'm like, I'll just use my side lane time as a way to just get Heartsteel stacked up so I can be more useful for the fights, because I have a Xayah Lulu, very good carry champions, and I want to play around them this game. So in this case, I'm a more supportive tank top laner. I'm not really a carry, even though I'm Renekton in this case because of the build. The goal is not to carry. And so we use that understanding to be a little bit more supportive. So I can give up that top wave early because I have TP to get back if I need. And I use this to initially push out the mid wave. I use mid wave push to get the next mid wave, which allows me to get the turret. And then instead of rotating into the top side where Garen and Lee Sin are, I use the fact that I know we're going to have a numbers advantage because I know where the jungler is, to rotate into the bottom side and find a really nice dive onto my carry champions, which are the Xayah Lulu, obviously, who are doing quite well in lane. And basically we use that to spread the lead to someone else, and then you can see the TP usage here, where I'm able to stop them from getting anything. So basically, we use the fact that we're a more supportive champion to get the initial mid push with our teammate, so that we can then push the mid wave for free since no one was responding. And then we use that mid push to go into the side lane on bot side to make a nice dive with our team, since we know enemy jungler is not there to respond. And then finally the TP usage to make sure the enemy don't get too much out of it, obviously, by stopping them from getting our turret afterwards. Also, you do see me about to die here. I don't know if I actually die. Looks like I died. I didn't even intend for the clip to go that far, but I didn't want you guys to think I'm editing out me dying. Obviously I die sometimes. Anyways, let's get into the next clip. Okay, so we talked, and also you just saw me accidentally click my ult. That was kind of funny. But we talked about how you usually want to split push on the opposite side of the objective that you're going to fight over next. However, there's going to be times where you can actually side lane on the same side of the objective you're going to kind of fight over. So in this situation, you do see that Dragon is going to be spawning soon, but the Baron is spawning before. So in some ways, I am split pushing on the opposite side of the objective. However, it's very, very frequent that people will go for the, the Dragon anyways in these types of scenarios, once it is spawning, which in this case is spawning a bit later, 45 seconds. But basically the point here that I want to get across to you guys is two main things. So the first is you can, when you want to fight, you can split push on the same side of the objective if the other side lane's already pushed out. So like again, say that we want to fight this dragon. As long as top side's not being pushed super far under our turret, we can split push on the same side of the objective initially. And then the other thing I want to talk about is understanding when you can die on side lane. So I'm a Heartsteel Renekton with, unfortunately, no ultimate because I misclicked it, but I have my third ability, I have my Gargoyle, and I have my Flash. I will not die here. And so I can just be, and I also don't care about taking a bit of damage. I have sustain, and I'm Renekton, I'm very tanky. I'm going to be fine. So instead, I initially go into the side lane very aggressively to draw pressure here, make it so that if multiple people come to me, I can just stall pretty easily and I get Heartsteel stacks for free. So the main two things I want you to understand is that you can split push on the same side of the objective if you really want to fight there and you already have the other side lane pushed or at least even. And secondly, understand your champion's tankiness. Understand who can kill you. Realize that as a Renekton with Gargoyle, with ultimate, hopefully if you don't misclick it, with Flash, with third ability, you're realistically not going to die. And so you can go a bit over aggressive on side to draw additional pressure. And you saw there I draw Lee Sin to me early and my team's easily able to rotate into me as I'm able to stall. All right, so there's going to be a few things from this clip. So the first is after you do win a fight, in this case we got Baron and we killed Garen. Baron and Garen, that rhymed. I'm so good at rhyming. Anyways, I'm really bored if you can't tell. So go to take advantage of something and get more out of your fight after you win the fight. So here we got Baron, we got a kill. So instead of immediately recalling when I have almost no gold to spend, I push top side immediately out, and then I stay on that side lane there. So the first thing is, after you win a fight, make sure you immediately go to the side lane, start getting some push, get, you know, turrets, get whatever, if you've already won the fight, as long as you don't overextend. And maybe if you have a bunch of gold to spend, then you can spend that gold instead. Then the next concept is going to be, again, related to Baron usage. So there's going to be a couple things with Baron. So the first thing is, notice how initially here, I end up going to the side lane right away and pushing rather than taking their camp. So why do I do that? Again, it's because I know how tanky my champion is. As Renekton, it would take a minimum of 3 people to kill me when I have Heartsteel with 652 stacks, I have ultimate, I have my dash, I have my Gargoyle. And if they send 3 people to me, 1, I'm going to stall a while, and 2, my team will be able to push other sides of the map, so I can be a bit greedy here. So understanding, again, your champion's tankiness and strength leads to you being able to be a bit greedier, get some turret damage like you saw there, for example, which is obviously very good for kind of preparation to eventually take the turret with Baron or something. The second concept I want to talk about is syncing waves. So syncing waves basically means that you have, and this is usually mostly with Baron that you do this, is that you have your wave hitting the enemy turret at the same time that a different wave on a different part of the map is hitting enemy turret or pressuring the enemy as well. And so if we look right now, for example, I'm not really having, you know, a wave on a turret as the enemy, or as my teammates rather, are trying to go on a turret. But then as this wave is coming here, I'm basically just trying to buy time and stall so that my team is then able to push this bottom side, which you see is kind of getting onto the enemy turret now. And if my teammates were smart, someone would have been mid as well. But basically what we have right now is we have a sync where we have the bottom lane wave is about to get onto the turret. We have top lane wave getting onto the turret. And then we have mid lane wave again, if it was played properly by teammates. So we have a really good sync of the wave. So basically it doesn't matter that 3 people are on me right now because the waves are synced in a way where this death creates a free bottom lane turret and numbers advantage for my teammates and creates a mid lane turret for my teammates as well. And that's basically what I want you guys to understand about Baron usage, especially when you're kind of just a tanky champion who's like, you know, I'm tanky, I'm strong in this game. I'm very strong right now, 10k gold with this many Heartsteel stacks. But again, my job is stall on side lane, basically sync the waves up, and then go more aggressive on the wave sync, because if the enemies send too many people to me, then we know that we're fine. Like, our team will get other stuff on the other part of the map, and I know I can 1v2 the Jhin and the Nami just because of how tanky I am. Alright, so we're on to our final clip. So there's a few things I want to talk about in this clip. So initially is knowing when you can die and when you can't die. So again, I'm Renekton with Flash Ultimate, very tanky, so I go on the wave pretty aggressively, since obviously I know multiple of the enemy are not here, and again, I'm very tanky, very hard to kill. So using that initial pressure to get the wave pushed. And then the next thing I want to talk about is using wave push to mess with enemy jungle. So oftentimes, you push the wave, You can't necessarily rotate to a fight, you know, depending on the point in the game. Like here, I can't really rotate and get much value in a fight. But you also can't really take the turret, because obviously Morgana is just going to wave clear. So another valuable thing you can do is take jungle camps. Like, it's that simple. If you go into the jungle and you notice that camps are killed, or camps are up rather, you can just go and you can kill them. It just basically is a free 150 gold that you're denying from the enemy while getting 150 gold to yourself. And you see I basically do the same thing here now with his raptors. So I'm just getting a bunch of value just by denying enemy jungle a bunch of gold. And then obviously this gives me an opportunity to possibly rotate into mid if I needed to. In this case, there's not really anything to do in mid lane, so instead we go back to top side and we kind of just cycle between these waves, just getting some free gold for ourselves essentially. And then taking the recall on our item. And so now at this point we have item, we go back to the side lane, we push out again, and then the next concept I want you to understand, again, well, first you're going to see me messing with jungle again, but the other is being more aggressive on numbers advantages. So since Lee Sin is dead, and honestly I should have kited this into the bush, I would have gotten this if I did, but because Lee Sin is dead for a period of time here, we basically have you know, a brief numbers advantage where I can be more aggressive. Again, I know that I'm Renekton, I'm very tanky, very hard to kill. And we can pretty much stall here because, again, we understand our champion strengths. And so even if the enemy come, because I have all these tools to stall, the enemy are, again, just not really going to be able to do much to me. And this stalling basically leads to my team having enough time to rotate. And let's say my team didn't rotate. Well, then they're going to be getting mid or bot push, and it's going to be fine there as well. So there's not really that much, you know, that could come super negatively out of this. And then we're able to get some good value from this situation as well. So basically, just understanding how tanky your champion is and how many kind of people you can take, rather than just being super, you know, scared all the time. Like you see pretty much permanently, I was pushing the turret into their top side and then using that push to get their camps, to have a possible rotation to mid, to draw pressure to me and draw multiple people to me, to basically do all of those different things. So this is how you can get value on side lane when you don't really have the ability to rotate, for example. Okay, so that's it for the examples. But there are some kind of summaries and some things I want to make clear at the end of this video, and I do think this is pretty important to watch as well to sort of put it all together. So again, you can see the main notes here about side lane macro, like in Baron lane, when to team fight, when to split push, understanding those types of things. And this is going to be some of the general stuff, but overall, again, I really want you to understand that you want to take into account a couple different things. The first is your champion strengths. So some champs are better at split pushing or team fighting. Obviously, depending on what you're better at, you're going to be more likely to do that. The second is how you use prio in mid waves and in different waves. So basically, again, making sure that 30 seconds, 40 seconds before an objective, you are getting the lane pushed out so that you have pressure there. So you draw someone there and then use the fact that someone's drawn there to then do what you want with them. So either keep them there, because once they're drawn there, you want to be in that 1v1, or use the fact that they're drawn there to rotate first. Understanding those differences is super, super important. And then lastly, understanding the differences between being ahead or behind. So again, when you're behind, you're wanting, more generally speaking, to have numbers disadvantage in one place and numbers advantage somewhere else. So having a 1v2 plus a 4v3 is good when you're behind, because it means you have an advantage somewhere, when otherwise, if you're just even numbers, you're going to have an advantage nowhere because you're losing. Whereas when you're ahead, you want to have even numbers. So you want a 4v4 plus a 1v1 or a 5v5, obviously. Like, these are the ideal things. And then lastly as well, keep in mind, will your presence change anything? So will me rotating to that fight change whether or not we win it? That's the general question you need to be asking yourself. And obviously the answer to that question is going to determine sort of what you end up doing. So that's just kind of a general summary of this. Again, make sure that you're not just actually trying to implement everything you saw in this 30-minute video. That's going to be too much. It's too information dense to do that. I want you guys to take away a couple key things at a time and work on that within your gameplay. And then once you fix that part of your game, you can go and implement other parts as well. But yeah, that's basically the summary portion of this video. Okay, so that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it. If you want to like or subscribe or whatever, that'd be very, very kind of you. And I will see you in the next one.